Hi guys, Yusef here, and welcome to Movie Thoughts, the show where we talk about movies. Today is going to be the first episode in our Halloween extravaganza for October. We're going to be talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in 1974 and directed by Tobe Hooper. I will say this, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my all-time favorite horror movie. It's a movie that no matter how many times I watch it, it still chills me to the bone, it still terrifies me. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it feels so real, and that's what scares me the most. Things that are based around reality, and that, honestly, it just terrifies me. But anyway, let's talk about the movie. So right off the bat, you have this gripping opening scene with these, all you hear are these sounds of somebody kind of digging through something, and you see these, somebody taking a picture, and the picture is corpses. It's just these pictures of corpses, and it's just a flash of a corpse, and you're like, wait, was that couldn't have been a corpse? And then boom, they just do it to you again, and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. So right off the bat it hits you with this imagery, and you're like, oh my god. And this chilling imagery just continues throughout the film. Like the next shot right after that is this desiccated corpse that's just dripping in viscera and just gore, and it's just propped up on a headstone, and it's just terrifying to look at, because you're like, who could have done such a horrendous thing to a dead body, And then it's also paired with these horrifying news reports about these grave diggers, a bunch of murders going on, and it's just really well done together. How it's all tied in together, and it's really a terrifying picture. Another great thing about this film as well is the intimate cinematography. A lot of the shots in this film are a continuous shot. Almost everything, especially in the beginning of the film, almost everything is just one continuous shot with barely any cuts. Especially when you have all these 5 characters inside the van at the beginning of the film, and they're just talking. And there's really not a lot of cuts or anything. It's just really strange. It's almost like documentary style filmmaking, which at the same time makes everything in the film feel a little bit more real. And then of course you do have one of the characters, Franklin, the young man in the wheelchair. One of the most annoying characters in horror history, probably up there with Shelley Duvall's character in The Shining. Because, my lord, is this boy annoying. You cannot wait for him to die. And then this jumps up into the next scene, which is this horrifying, just tremendous scene with the hitchhiker. And this scene is just chilling to the bone, because it's just so uncomfortable, because there's only 2 camera shots. It's the shot of the hitchhiker and the shot of the teens in the van. And it's just so uncomfortable, because they're all just staring at him, wondering what he's going to do, and you're kind of in the same position, because you don't know anything about this character. And he's just such a strange character, because he has this huge birthmark on his face. He's talking about, killing cows. He takes pictures of the cows he's killed. And then he grabs Franklin's knife, and he slits his own hand open, and you're like, oh my god, what is happening right now? What is this movie? And it's a terrifying scene. And I think part of it has to do as well with the fact that there's no music at all. Or there's music in the background, but it's the music that's being played through a radio, so it's not actual score or music that was put in there after the production process. It wasn't done in post-production or anything. It's just music that happened to be playing in the background. And again, it just adds to that realistic style of filmmaking, that documentary style of filmmaking that was so prevalent in 1970s horror films. And I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy that style of film so much. Going on about the characters in the film, Elisa, your main characters here, your protagonists, they're all your typical horror teens, just these kind of dumb, well, some of them are dumb, shallow characters that they're just there to be killed in the film, and that doesn't really change, They do have, so these characters keep on traveling through the Texas countryside, and they end up going to this home that used to belong to Franklin and Sally, our protagonists. They used to be their grandparents' home. So you have a couple scenes there, and this is where you get more shots of Franklin being annoying as hell. Just him just making fun of these other characters, just doing stupid laughs, you know, blowing, like, making fart sounds. Like, he's just so annoying. Like, you just like, please just stop. And then one of the other things about this film when it comes to the cinematography is you can really feel the heat in like the Texas summer, because it is like, you see a lot of these, you know, like the heat waves coming through. You get a bunch of shots of like this blazing sun, and like you definitely get a feel of how hot it was when they were filming the scene, this whole movie actually. And you know, they really brought this like heat to life, and I thought that was a very well done decision in terms of the filmmaking and the cinematography. So then you move on to this next scene that features Kirk, one of the teens, and his girlfriend, whose name escapes me because she was really unimportant. She was just there to be killed. And this movie kind of took me by surprise the first time I saw it, because Kirk is shown as such an intelligent, kind of responsible adult. He's kind of the leader of their whole little group. And in the film, he is the first character to die. And the way he dies is just horrific. Because he's going into the house that's populated by Leatherface, and Leatherface just like pops in, hits him with a meat tenderizer, and Kirk just drops and he just shakes, and it's kind of hard to watch because it feels like a realistic death scene. And then you see you see Leatherface dragging him into the room and then closes the door, and you get just like a terrifying glimpse, because you don't really see Leatherface for that much. You only see him for like 10 seconds at the most, and you're like, what the fuck was that? So, you know, it's a very, very tense scene. Another thing that I thought was really important about that is just the way that the violence on film happens so fast. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around it, because it's just, you know, Leatherface shows up, hits him with a tenderizer, you see him shake, he drags him, and that's it. And you're like, whoa. Because it feels, you know, it's just such a... It didn't make any, you know, big bones about it. It didn't have any music. It wasn't really. It was a jump scare, but it was a jump scare that wasn't leading up to a jump scare. It's one of those things where, like in modern horror, you know, the music swells up and you're like, oh, here comes a jump scare. This movie just hits you right out of the bat, right out of the gate with it, and it was terrifying, because you just see this random guy appear with like a weird yellowish mask that looks like it's made out of human skin. Hits your main character, drags him out, and he's done. Honestly, it's a scene that takes less than a minute to do, and it's terrifying. And then after that scene is when you get Kirk's girlfriend going into the house, and this is where more of the creepy, horrifying imagery is found inside the house, because it's this room that she goes into, and it's filled with bones and like feathers, and there's like furniture with human bones and a couch made out of human bones, and it's very horrific. It's a very difficult imagery to watch, especially because there's a lot of close-ups of it. There's a lot of different shots. There's a lot of Dutch angles, so the cinematography is just really, really out there, and it really brings like this confusing imagery, and like it really makes you feel what these characters are feeling. And I mean, in cinematography wise, this movie just hits it out of the park every single time, just because it's so creepy and so terrifying that it just brings these images to life in such a way that it makes you identify with the characters that are seeing these things for the first time. And wow, it just hits me every single time. And now, like I said earlier, there's barely any music in this film, but the little music that there is also terrifying music, because it's not your traditional film music. A lot of it is just actual industrial sounds, and even compressed sounds of chainsaws being revved, and that's what accounts for music. And it's so unforgiving, so uncompromising, because it just hits you right out of the gate with it's these deep booming sounds and revs, and that's what counts for music in this film. And it's just really terrifying, because it doesn't give you a sense of, oh, I'm just watching a movie. It gives you a sense of, I'm watching a documentary. And man, it just works, you know? You also do get the scene where Kurt's girlfriend is picked up by Leatherface, and Leatherface utters the most terrifying yell because it's just like woo, and it scares me because I cannot imagine somebody running at me making that noise. I would shit my pants straight up. And then he grabs her. He's gonna put her on a meat hook, and the editing here is so well done that it's very similar to Psycho, where they don't actually show you the meat hook penetrating the skin or the knife penetrating the skin in Psycho. But the way the editing is set up, it makes you feel like it's actually happening. It almost makes you feel like you're watching her being put in on this meat hook, and I give it major props in terms of the editing because they did such a good job. And at the same time here, you also get a sense of Leatherface's character a little bit, and Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface in this film, did a terrific job of bringing this character. I mean, in interviews and everything, he had said that he based his performance of Leatherface on mentally challenged children and adults, and that really shines through because you see this, he acts like a child. He literally acts like he's just a scared child that's protecting his home, and it's almost like he doesn't know any better, and it's a very humanizing character because you were so used to seeing, especially now like slasher films, you're so used to seeing like these supernatural forces that just shamble towards you and kind of just does his thing, whereas Leatherface just run towards you, he yells at you, he gets scared, like he's a very human villain in this film, and I think that's one of the reasons why he scares me so much, because he acts like a real person, and a real person could be capable of such acts, of such horrific and terrifying acts. So then after those death scenes there, we do go back to our characters, Sally and Franklin, brother and sister. And oh my god, Franklin just continues to be the most annoying character I've ever seen in my life. Like, I just want him to die already. Please die. He just doesn't die. He's so annoying. He just cries, and he's just like a man-child, and it's just so annoying. So then, after that scene, you do get Sally and Franklin going out into the woods to look for their friends, and finally you get another, you get another jump scare, and then finally you get this terrifying attack on Franklin that Leatherface just revs into him with the chainsaw, and you don't see that violence actually. You don't really, it isn't really explicitly shown, but you see a lot of it in quick cuts, and that's where I think it works because it scares you the most. It's very similar in the way that Joss was shot, because instead of just showing you this violence outright, it shows you what this violence might look like from your eyes, because you're so, it's such a chaotic scene, and it's so chaotic and just everywhere that you don't really get a good sense of what's happening, but at the same time your mind gives you a sense of what's happening. So it really works because it doesn't explicitly show you, but it gives you it makes you imagine what is actually happening, and that for me is one of the greatest things about this film. Right after Franklin's death, you do get this terrifying chase sequence where Leatherface is chasing Sally through the woods, and the way the cinematography in here is as good as the cinematography was, it gets even better here because it's in the woods in the dark at night, and they give you such a good sense of what Sally is going through, because you feel just as lost as she is, just running through these woods blindly. And at the same time, you also get like the sound of this chainsaw just revving, getting closer and closer, and it's so tense because you're like, oh my god, is he going to catch her? And it was very well edited as well. Now, there's one problem with that chase sequence for me, and that for me is that it feels a little bit too long. Like, she runs to the house where he was, she finds some stuff, or jumps out the window, keeps running, he keeps chasing her, they keep running some more, and it's just like, okay, get to the next thing here. There's a lot of running, and I never thought I'd say this, but it does get a little bit boring. At least that chase sequence gets a little bit boring because it's just like it keeps going and going. You're like, just hurry up, get to the next thing. So after the unending chase sequence, we do get reintroduction to a character that had shown up earlier in the film that you kind of didn't really think much about because he's just kind of there. He was kind of portrayed as a throwaway character. But this is where the movie gives you this twist, and it turns out that it was a gas station attendant. That this gas station attendant is actually working with Leatherface, and he ties Sally up. And this is where the movie really does show you kind of the worst in humanity, because he starts beating her with a stick, and there's this big smile on his face, and you can tell that he's enjoying what he's doing, and that's terrifying, because there's people like that in the world, and that scares the shit out of me. So, you know, after she's taken by the attendant, they call him the chef. So he takes her back to the house, and this is where you see, this is where you also see that the hitchhiker is part of their family. And this is also where you see this twisted family dynamic, because when they get back to the house, Leatherface is in the kitchen, and you get Leatherface in the kitchen as well, acting like a woman. And you know, the chef kind of treats Leatherface like he's not just a child, but also his wife or something like that, and it's very, very strange. Very, just it makes you uncomfortable, really, because it's just like it's a very poignant flip of your typical family dynamic of, you know, the mother, father, son. And here it's the mother, the father is the chef, the mother is Leatherface, and the hitchhiker is the son. And it makes for one extremely twisted family dynamic, and it's very terrifying to watch, really. So, you know, they set up here this infamous dinner scene that's been shown, it's been imitated, it's been copied many times, it's shown up in countless other movies, TV shows, and video games. And they also show you who they call Grandpa, the Grandpa character, and they did such a great job on his makeup. Because actually, you know, I did some behind the scenes like footage. I've seen some of the behind the scenes stuff, and it was just like this 30-year-old guy that they put into old man makeup, and they did such a good job bringing in that character with the makeup. And you know, but going back to the dinner scene, this is such a terrifying, like, visceral sequence that it really chills me to the bone. Because it feels like a documentary style filmmaking, and like I said, the cinematography in here is crazy. Here's where the movie gets even crazier, because there's a lot more quick cuts, a lot of extreme close-ups, because you get close-ups of like Sally's eyes as she's like looking around, darting around as this like crazy scene unfolds before her. And again, you also feel like the heat. You feel these characters are like super close to her face, or making fun of her, they're threatening to kill her. And it's just very tense, and you feel so bad for this poor girl, and you just want her to escape. And in terms of the sound design, it's crazy, because all you hear is just like these characters just howling, Sally screaming, the chainsaw revving sounds from earlier in the film. And it gets to the point where the scene drags on for so long that it just makes you uncomfortable, because they just keep making fun of her, and you're like, what's gonna happen next? You know, are they gonna kill her? Are they gonna just feed her meat or something? And it's really scary. It's a genuinely terrifying scene, because like I said, it's based around reality. Like, there are people who have gone through what Sally went through, and it's the fact that could happen in real life is something that honestly terrifies me, and that's why I love this film so much. After this infamous dinner scene, Sally was finally able to escape. She runs out. The hitchhiker chases after her, so does Leatherface with his chainsaw. And, you know, this crazy effect happens where the hitchhiker gets hit by a truck, and they did such a good job with the practical effects there, because it does really look like somebody's getting hit by a giant truck. And it was very well done. And then you finally have Sally escaping from the crazy family, and you know, the last shot of the movie is Leatherface dancing with this chainsaw, and it's just so uncomfortable and so terrifying. Sure, all you're seeing is just this crazy chainsaw wielding maniac just dancing around, whipping this chainsaw back and forth, and you're like, oh my god, what did I just watch? So yeah, I think this is one of those movies that like has it. I feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of those films that has kind of stood the test of time. It's still relevant today. It's still terrifying today, and you know it's got this amazing cinematography. It's got some terrifying scenes, some great acting by some of these villains, and some of the in our final girl did such a great job of portraying her predicament, her terrified state of mind, and I feel like this movie is just kind of underrated sometimes, honestly. I give the Texas Chainsaw Massacre an A-. Guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this episode of Movie Thoughts. If there was a movie that you'd like for me to cover, please drop it in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, and become a part of the Cyborg Army today.